My heart was thundering, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, as a man in scrubs gripped my arm, his voice chillingly firm. "Ma'am, please cooperate or we'll have to restrain you." Restrain me? In my own home? Panic clawed at my chest. What is this? Why are you doing this to me? I screamed, desperately searching for Nathaniel, for anyone who could explain. But all I saw were strange, cold, expressionless faces, dragging me out like I was some kind of criminal. In that horrifying moment, I knew my nightmare had only just begun. My name is Charlotte Anderson, and up until a few weeks ago I was 32 years old, living a life I thought was nothing short of perfect. A loving husband, a beautiful home, and my anchor. My father, Joshua Anderson. He was my rock, my hero, the only family I had left after my mom passed when I was just a little girl. He single-handedly raised me, truly understood me, and built an empire that was meant to be my legacy. I honestly thought the worst pain I could ever know was losing him in a tragic plane crash. One phone call, that's all it took to shatter my world. I was organizing a fundraiser when my phone buzzed. "Miss Anderson, we're so sorry to inform you." The rest blurred. Plane crash. No survivors. My dad, my hero, gone. It felt unreal, a cruel joke. Days later at the funeral, I stood next to my husband, Nathaniel, and his mother, Martha, accepting condolences from strangers. Martha's grip on my hand was tight, her eyes seemingly brimming with sympathy, but something about her touch felt off, too firm, too calculated. The grief was a suffocating haze, dulling everything, yet nothing prepared me for the cold, clinical reading of my father's will. Nathaniel sat beside me, offering quiet reassurance as the lawyer's voice cut through the silence. "Charlotte, you are the sole heir to your father's estate. Everything. Anderson Steel, the properties, the investments. All mine." I remember glancing at Nathaniel, who offered a small, supportive smile, then at Martha, whose face was utterly unreadable. The weight of the Anderson empire landed squarely on my shoulders, and I barely had time to process the loss before I was thrust into a world of boardrooms, legalities, and decisions I never asked for. But that was just weeks ago. Now I was being forced into an unmarked van, taken to a sterile facility that smelled of disinfectant. The drive felt endless, my sense of time warped by the sheer panic coursing through my veins. I screamed, I begged for answers, but no one spoke. When the doors finally opened, I saw it. A tall, ominous building surrounded by a high fence. A chill ran down my spine. The beige walls, the faint, sour smell mixed with cleaning chemicals, the people in white coats moving briskly, avoiding eye contact as if I didn't exist. "There's been a misunderstanding," I demanded, my voice cracking. "You have the wrong person." But no one answered. Instead, they handed me a plain set of clothes and told me to change. That's when Dr. Paul Reynolds, the director, approached me. His smile was unsettlingly calm, his voice steady, almost soothing, but his eyes, they held a coldness that made my stomach churn. "Miss Anderson, you're in a safe place." Safe? I felt anything but safe. What is this place? Why am I here? I demanded, my voice trembling. He sighed, as if he'd had this conversation 100 times before. "I understand you're confused, but this is for your own good," he said, completely ignoring my question. "Your husband expressed deep concerns about your well-being following your father's passing. He's worried about you, Charlotte." My blood ran cold. Nathaniel. This wasn't concern. This was a profound, gut-wrenching betrayal. I was sitting in a stark, cold room inside what I now understood was a mental institution. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and my head spun with questions with no answers. Dr. Reynolds's words replayed over and over. "This is for your own good. Your husband is deeply concerned about you." Concerned? Nathaniel had never mentioned anything. How could he do this without even speaking to me? Every time I asked for an explanation, I was met with the same dismissive response. "It's all in your best interest." My best interest being locked away in this place? I wasn't even allowed to contact Nathaniel, or anyone for that matter. Soon after, they gave me pills. Something to help me relax. I tried to refuse, but a nurse stood over me until I swallowed them. Not long after, everything became hazy. My body felt heavy, my thoughts sluggish. It was like they were trying to erase me one pill at a time. When I woke, the first thing I noticed was the silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, eerie, oppressive. I opened my eyes to a stark white room, A narrow bed, a steel wheelchair. Bare walls. A blankness that felt intentionally dehumanizing. For a moment I thought it was a dream, but the stiffness in my body, the throbbing in my head, the dry mouth, it was all too real. I tried to sit up, but my limbs felt weak, like I'd been asleep for days. The air smelled sharp, chemical, and the faint hum of a distant machine was the only sound. Panic bubbled in my chest. No clock, no window, not even a mirror. Just emptiness. Hello? Is anyone there? My voice cracked, barely a whisper. Only my own echo answered. The silence became unbearable. Panic turned to anger, and before I knew it, I was on my feet, slamming my fists against the cold, unyielding walls. Let me out. I screamed, my voice breaking. What is this place? Someone tell me what's going on. My hands stung, but I didn't stop. The frustration, the confusion, the betrayal, it all boiled over. I didn't even hear the door open. A nurse appeared, syringe in hand, her face blank, robotic. Please calm down, Miss Anderson, she said, devoid of emotion. I stumbled back, shaking my head, but before I could react, she grabbed my arm with surprising force and plunged the needle in. No! Stop! I shouted, but it was too late. The room spun. My legs gave out. My last thought before everything went black was, this can't be real. This has to be some kind of nightmare. The next 2 weeks passed in a haze. I only realized how much time had gone by when I overheard a nurse mentioning it. Most days were spent in a drugged stupor, barely aware. The medication dulled everything, my emotions, my thoughts, even the physical sensations of my own body. I couldn't muster the strength to ask questions anymore. The Charlotte I knew, the one who fought, who demanded answers, felt like a distant memory. I'd wake briefly, eat the tasteless food, and drift back into unconsciousness. My dreams were fragmented, filled with distorted faces and muffled voices. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of Nathaniel, but I couldn't tell if it was my mind playing tricks or if I was clinging to the last bit of hope. Each time I woke, I felt heavier, sinking deeper into a void. I wasn't living, I was just existing, and that terrified me more than anything. Then one day something shifted. During a group therapy session, a joke really, since no one spoke, a girl with sharp, intelligent eyes, Lily, nudged me. Don't bother with these people, she whispered, her voice low. They're just as crazy as the ones who put us here. But you don't belong here, do you? I stared at her, trying to gauge if she was serious or just messing with me. Her eyes didn't waver. There was something about her, calm but sharp, always calculating. I was confused, wary, but what choice did I have? I was desperate. And for the first time in weeks, someone had spoken to me like a person. What do you mean? I whispered back, my voice hoarse from disuse. Lily leaned closer, barely audible. This place isn't just for the mentally ill. People end up here because someone wants them gone. You think you're the first. My stomach twisted, but I didn't have time to process her words before she sat back, acting like nothing had happened. You can either trust me, or you can stay here and rot. Trouble or not, I knew one thing. She might be my only chance to get out of this hell. Later that day, during our brief free time, Lily found me again. She sat down, keeping her tone casual. I've gotten out of here before, you know. My surprise must have shown. You've escaped. I whispered. She nodded, a smirk tugging at her mouth. A few times. It's not as hard as you think. But they always find me. The streets aren't exactly forgiving, and I stick out too much. After a few days they catch me, bring me back, drug me up for a while, and act like I never left. Her voice was steady, almost nonchalant, but I could see a flicker of frustration in her eyes. But you, she added, looking straight at me, you're different. You don't belong here, and you've got something they want to keep locked away. That makes you dangerous to them. And that means we have a better chance if we work together. Lily leaned in closer, her voice barely a whisper. I got caught again the day before you arrived. I was so close, but they picked me up a few streets over. Same routine. But this time I've been watching, studying the new guards. They're not as sharp as the old ones. My eyebrows raised, skeptical but intrigued. New guards? I asked quietly. She nodded, her dark eyes glinting with determination. Yeah, the night shifts especially. They're lazy, distracted. I've been mapping their routines during meals, free time, lights out. I know when the hall cameras are watched, and when they aren't. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't dared to feel: hope. By the way, if you're still with me through this nightmare, please make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Your support truly helps, and trust me, you won't want to miss the unbelievable stories I'll be sharing next. Over the next few days, Lily and I quietly pieced together a plan. She'd whisper details during meals or in the common room: what time the night shift guards switched, which doors were left unlocked for staff, the quickest route to the outer gate. Timing is everything, Lily said one evening, stirring her bland soup. If we get caught, it's game over. They'll double the meds, and we'll never get another chance. We decided on 2 nights from then. Lily would create a distraction near the nurse's station, pulling attention while I slipped into the hallway with a stolen key card she'd somehow swiped. Once clear, we'd meet at the back exit and slip out through a maintenance door she swore hadn't been locked in months. It's risky, she said, her voice serious for the first time, but it's the only shot we've got. Risky didn't even begin to cover it, but staying here wasn't an option. The night of the escape, my heart pounded so loudly I was sure it would give us away. Lily's timing was flawless. She managed to knock over a cart near the nurse's station, sending trays and equipment crashing to the floor. The noise echoed, drawing the guards like clockwork. I slipped out of the common room, clutching the stolen key card so tightly it dug into my palm. My legs still felt weak from the medication, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Lily met me at the maintenance door, her face flushed but focused. We were halfway to the outer wall when the shout started. "Stop them! They're escaping!" My chest tightened. 2 guards sprinted toward us, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Panic surged, but Lily grabbed my arm and pointed ahead. "Go! The wall's just up there," she hissed. I didn't have time to think. I ran, every step burning. When I reached the towering barrier, I clawed at the rough surface, forcing myself to climb even though my arms felt like lead. Behind me, I heard Lily yell, "Keep going, Charlotte. Don't stop." My heart sank as I looked back and saw her standing firm, facing the guards. She grabbed a loose piece of wood and swung it wildly, buying me precious seconds. "Gio!" she screamed again. My breath caught as I reached the top, pulling myself over with every ounce of strength I had left. The last thing I saw before dropping to the other side was Lily, defiant to the end, as the guards closed in on her. I don't know how I managed to find the strength to climb that wall. After so many days of being pumped full of heavy medication, my muscles ached, my head was spinning, and every movement felt like dragging my body through quicksand. But when you're fighting to survive, something primal kicks in. You find strength you didn't know you had, fueled by fear, desperation, and the sheer will to escape. My fingers clawed at the rough concrete, scraping and burning as I pulled myself up inch by inch. The sounds of Lily struggling, her shouts urging me on, echoed behind me. My arms screamed in protest, my legs felt like they might give out any second, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. With one final heave, I threw myself over the top and tumbled to the ground on the other side. The impact was jarring but freeing. For the first time in weeks, I felt the cool night air on my skin. I was out. But my heart ached, knowing Lily had stayed behind to make it happen. The next 2 days were a blur of fear and exhaustion. I had no plan, no idea where to go or who to trust. The streets were cold and unforgiving. Every noise, every car horn, every passing stranger sent my heart racing. I kept to the shadows, ducking into alleys and abandoned buildings, terrified they'd find me, drag me back and lock me away for good. My body was running on fumes, the medication lingering, making me sluggish and disconnected. The little food I found barely took the edge off the hunger. I barely slept, too afraid someone would recognize me or report me. The world outside was supposed to be freeing, but instead it felt like a cage of its own. My mind kept going back to Lily. Was she okay? Had she paid the ultimate price for helping me? The guilt was overwhelming, but I couldn't let it stop me. I had to keep moving. After 2 days of hiding on the streets, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed help, and the only person I could think of was Jonathan Sachs, my father's most trusted advisor. But I wasn't stupid. I couldn't just announce myself. I'd managed to collect enough spare change, holding out an old coffee cup on a busy corner, avoiding eye contact with everyone who passed. Humiliation aside, it was enough to get me to a payphone. I dialed the Anderson Steel main number, my fingers shaking. When the receptionist answered professional and clipped, I took a deep breath. "Hi, this is Anna Collins," I lied, trying to sound composed. "I'm a former colleague of Jonathan Sachs, and I need to speak with him right away." There was a pause, my heart racing, but then she said, "One moment please," and the line clicked to hold. I let out a shaky breath, clinging to the faint hope. When the line finally connected, I heard Jonathan's voice, steady and professional, just as I remembered. "This is Jonathan Sachs." "Jonathan," I started, my voice trembling. "It's me, Charlotte." There was a long pause. "Charlotte," he finally said, a mix of disbelief and caution. "Where are you?" Everyone thought. I cut him off. "I can't tell you where I am, but I need your help. I've been locked away in a mental institution, Jonathan. They drugged me. They said I was a danger to myself, but it's not true. It was Nathaniel and his mother. They did this to me." My voice cracked, tears threatening to spill. "Please, Jonathan, just meet me. And you have to swear to me you won't tell Nathaniel or Martha." Another pause, longer this time, before he finally said, "All right. Where do you want to meet?" Jonathan arrived at the park just as the sun began to set. I stayed hidden near a tree, watching him to make sure he was alone. When I finally stepped out, his face went pale. "Charlotte," he said, his voice low, almost disbelieving. "You look. God, what's happened to you?" I motioned for him to sit. I was too drained to respond right away. We settled on a bench far from the main path. "They took everything from me," I began, my voice trembling as I fought for composure. "Nathaniel and Martha. They're behind all of this. After my father died, they had me declared mentally unstable and locked in a facility. I've been drugged and trapped for weeks." I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "And you know the worst part? They've disappeared. Not a word, not a visit, not even a trace. They threw me away like I was nothing, Jonathan. Nothing." Jonathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, trying to process everything. "Why would they do this to you?" he asked, a mix of disbelief and anger. "I mean, Nathaniel, he loved you, didn't he? And Martha, why would she go to such extremes?" I shook my head, my hands gripping the bench so tightly my knuckles turned white. "That's what I need to find out. It's not just about the inheritance. They wanted me out of the picture completely. But why? Why go this far?" I looked at him, hoping he'd understand the urgency. "I need your help, Jonathan. You were close to my father, and you know the business better than anyone. If anyone can help me figure this out, it's you." Jonathan sat back, letting out a slow breath. Then, without hesitation, he nodded. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "I believe you, Charlotte. And if what you're saying is true, we can't waste any time. You need a safe place, somewhere no one will think to look for you." He scanned the park. "I have a small property outside the city. Nothing fancy, just a quiet place I use when I need to get away. You can stay there while we figure this out." Relief washed over me, though it was mixed with exhaustion. I followed him to his car, keeping my head down. The drive was quiet, Jonathan glancing at me with concern. When we arrived, the property was exactly as he described. Small, simple, tucked away. "It's not much," he said, opening the door. "But it's safe. I'll bring you food, clothes, whatever you need." I nodded, too drained to say much more. But his kindness felt like the first ray of hope I'd had in weeks. The next morning, I woke up feeling slightly better. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't looking over my shoulder or hiding in shadows. The small room Jonathan had prepared was modest but warm, a far cry from the cold, sterile walls of the asylum. I stretched gingerly, my body still aching, but the clarity in my mind was something I hadn't felt in weeks. Jonathan arrived shortly after, with groceries and a determined look. "I've been thinking about everything you told me," he began, setting the bag on the counter. "I contacted someone, an old friend who works as a private investigator. I told him what little I know, and he's agreed to help. We need to figure out exactly what Nathaniel and Martha did, who they worked with, and why." "Whisper." He nodded firmly. "Yes. They've issued warrants for both of them. The authorities are coordinating to ensure they're apprehended simultaneously. It'll be discreet but swift." Relief and anxiety flooded me all at once. Relief that justice might finally be within reach, but anxiety, his voice was steady, but I could see the worry in his eyes. "This isn't going to be easy, Charlotte, but if they've left a trail, we'll find it." For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Someone was finally on my side, and I wasn't going to let Nathaniel and Martha win. A week later, the door creaked open. Jonathan stepped inside, his face grim but focused. Behind him followed a man who looked like he belonged on the cover of a detective novel, tall, sharp-eyed, with an air of quiet authority. He carried a weathered leather briefcase and nodded politely as Jonathan introduced him. "Charlotte, this is David Harper. He's the private investigator I hired." "David, this is Charlotte." David set his briefcase on the small kitchen table and opened it with practiced precision. "Miss Anderson, I've spent the last week piecing together what happened to you," he began, pulling out a thick stack of documents, photos, and handwritten notes. "It's worse than we initially thought, and frankly, it's astonishing how far they went to cover their tracks." He laid out the first set of papers, official-looking forms with signatures and seals. "This," he said, pointing to a medical report, "is a fraudulent psychiatric evaluation. Nathaniel and Martha hired a psychiatrist, Dr. Evelyn Mars, to fabricate this report. It states that you were a danger to yourself following your father's death, and that you needed immediate psychiatric intervention." I stared at the document, my stomach churning. But how could they make that stick? I was fine. Grieving, but fine. David nodded grimly. "They knew grief alone wouldn't hold up, so they exaggerated your behavior. Claims of paranoia, erratic mood swings, even self-harm, none of which were corroborated. That report was the foundation for what came next." He slid another paper forward. "This is the expedited court order, signed by Judge Leonard Grayson, a name that appears on several questionable cases I've investigated before." He was bribed to fast-track the order, bypassing the usual scrutiny. Jonathan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his face growing darker with every word. David continued, pulling out another set of documents. "Once the court order was signed, it was sent directly to the facility where you were admitted. The owners of that institution, Dr. Paul Reynolds and his partners, are known for accepting high-profile patients with special circumstances. They've been under the radar for years, taking bribes to keep people out of sight and under control." He placed a photo of Reynolds and Nathaniel shaking hands at what appeared to be a private meeting. "This was taken 3 days before your commitment." My breath caught, and my hands trembled as I reached for the photo. "Nathaniel. He planned this. They both planned this." I whispered, my voice barely audible. David nodded again. "Not only did they plan it, but they also ensured you'd stay heavily medicated, reducing your chances of reaching out or appearing coherent if anyone visited." He tapped another paper, a ledger showing payments. "Here's the money trail. Nathaniel transferred $250,000 to Dr. Reynolds the day after you were admitted. That payment bought your silence." I felt like I couldn't breathe, the room spinning as the weight of their betrayal hit me. "And Martha?" I asked, my voice raw. David's expression hardened. "She was instrumental. Communications between her and Nathaniel show that she pushed for this. She convinced him it was the only way to secure your inheritance. Without you in the picture, they'd gain full control of the Anderson estate." He pulled out one last piece of evidence, a series of emails between Nathaniel, Martha, and Dr. Mars. They discussed everything in chilling detail, fabricating the report, bribing the judge, and ensuring I'd be kept sedated indefinitely. "They were thorough," David admitted. "But they underestimated 2 things. 1, your resilience, and 2, my team's ability to dig through the mess they left behind." Jonathan, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "Charlotte, this is enough to take them down. With this evidence, we can not only expose what they've done, but ensure they're held accountable." His voice was firm, but I could see the anger simmering beneath. I looked at the spread of evidence before me, proof of the lengths they'd gone to strip me of my freedom, my sanity, and my life. My fear began to give way to something stronger, something that had been building since the day I escaped: determination. "They thought they could destroy me," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "But they're going to learn just how wrong they were." When Jonathan and David left, the house fell silent again, leaving me alone with the weight of everything I just learned. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of evidence, the damning proof of what Nathaniel and Martha had done to me. My hands trembled as I traced the edges of one of the photos. A snapshot of Nathaniel shaking hands with that awful Dr. Paul Reynolds. It felt surreal, like I was looking at a stranger instead of the man I once loved with all my heart. Nathaniel. His name echoed in my mind like a haunting melody I couldn't silence. How could someone I trusted so deeply, someone who had held me during my darkest moments after my father's death, do something so brutal? The memories of us together came flooding back. The laughter, the promises, the way he looked at me as if I were his whole world. Was any of it real, or was it all just part of some long con, orchestrated by his manipulative mother? I pressed my hands to my face, the tears finally spilling over. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the cruel, calculated way they'd stripped me of my life, as if I were nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. The next morning, Jonathan arrived earlier than usual, his face tense but energized. "Charlotte," he said, motioning for me to sit. "David and I spoke with the authorities last night. After reviewing the evidence, they've confirmed we have a strong case. Strong enough to take Nathaniel and Martha into custody immediately." I blinked at him, the words almost too overwhelming. "So it's happening?" I asked, my voice barely above at the thought of facing the fallout. "What happens to them now?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. Jonathan leaned forward, his tone reassuring. "They'll be taken in for questioning first. Once in custody, the evidence we've gathered will speak for itself." He paused, glancing at me as he stood to leave. "By the way," he added, "they already have officers watching the mansion. If Nathaniel or Martha try to run, they'll be caught before they get anywhere." After Jonathan left, I stared at the phone for what felt like hours, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. With trembling hands, I dialed Nathaniel's number. It rang twice before he picked up. "It's over, Nathaniel," I said, my tone sharper than I expected. There was a beat of silence on the other end before he replied. "Charlotte? Oh my God, is it really you? I've been so worried about you. Where are you? Are you okay?" "Cut the act, Nathaniel," I said sharply, my voice like steel. "I didn't call to hear your lies. I know everything." Another beat of silence before he spoke again, this time more cautiously. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his tone measured but tinged with nervousness. "Where have you been? People have been looking for you." "I was worried sick." "Worried?" I scoffed, gripping the phone tighter. "You mean worried I'd escape? Worried I'd find out about the lies you and your mother spun to have me locked away?" I didn't let him interrupt. "Save it, Nathaniel. I know about the fake diagnosis, the bribes, the payments to keep me drugged and out of the way. It's over." Nathaniel hesitated, his voice faltering slightly. "Charlotte, I don't know where you're getting this from, but you've been through so much lately. Maybe you're confused. Don't you dare patronize me." I snapped, cutting him off. "You think I don't know what you've done? I have the proof, Nathaniel. The bribes, the documents, the payments to the clinic. It's all out in the open now. You and Martha thought you could bury me, but you underestimated me." Nathaniel was quiet for a moment, and I could hear his shaky breath on the other end. "Charlotte, I didn't know what else to do," he finally stammered, his voice breaking slightly. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Martha said it was for your own good. She said you were spiraling after your father died. I thought we were helping you." "Helping me?" I said, my voice rising with disbelief. "Do you even hear yourself, Nathaniel? You drugged me, locked me away, and stripped me of my life. You didn't help me, you tried to erase me." "I didn't want to erase you," he snapped suddenly, the facade cracking. I didn't want to lose everything. Martha said if you were declared unfit, we could take control of the estate until you recovered. I thought it was temporary." I thought. "You thought I'd what?" "Thank you for ruining my life." I interrupted, my fury bubbling over. "Be honest, Nathaniel. You never intended to give anything back. This wasn't about helping me, this was about greed. Admit it." "No," he shouted, his voice desperate now. "I loved you, Charlotte. I still do. I swear to God I never wanted to hurt you. Martha, she made it sound like the only way. She kept pushing and pushing and I was weak, okay? I listened to her because I thought it was what I had to do. Stop hiding behind her." I yelled, my chest heaving with anger. You signed those papers, Nathaniel. You made the payments. You stood by while they drugged me and let me rot in that place. Don't you dare try to make this about her. Take responsibility for once in your life. I didn't know it would get that bad, he shouted back, his voice breaking completely. I thought it would be easy, that you'd be out of the way for a little while, and then we could figure it out later. I didn't know they'd keep you drugged like that. I didn't know you'd. His voice trailed off, the weight of his guilt finally sinking in. You didn't know? I said bitterly, my tone dripping with contempt. You didn't want to know. You closed your eyes and let her manipulate you because it was easier than standing up for what was right. And now you're going to pay for it. Nathaniel's voice was barely a whisper now. Charlotte, I swear I'll make it right. I'll tell them everything. I'll go to the authorities, just please believe me. I never stopped loving you. Loving me. I repeated, my voice cold. If this is what your love looks like, I don't want it. You and Martha destroyed everything, Nathaniel. There's no fixing this. For a moment, the line was silent except for his shaky breathing. Charlotte, he said finally, his voice broken. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. You can say it to the police, I said flatly. And before he could respond, I hung up. My hand hovered over the receiver for a moment before I let out a shaky breath. It wasn't closure. Not entirely. But it was enough. For now. The next morning I stood across the street from the mansion I once called home, watching as the police swarmed the property. The flashing lights of their vehicles reflected off the windows, casting an almost surreal glow over the scene. My heart pounded as I watched officers march up the front steps, their knock on the door firm and commanding. Moments later the door opened and there they were. Nathaniel and Martha. Nathaniel's face was pale, his usual composure completely shattered as the officers cuffed his hands behind his back. He looked around wildly, his eyes searching the crowd that had gathered. When his gaze landed on me, his entire body tensed. Charlotte, he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. Charlotte, please let me explain. He tried to step toward me, but the officers restrained him, pulling him back. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stared at him, my face a mask of cold indifference. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction, not anymore. His pleas grew more frantic as they led him toward one of the waiting cars. Charlotte, I love you. Please don't do this. His voice faded as they forced him into the back seat. Martha, on the other hand, was the picture of defiance. She held her head high, her expression unreadable as they cuffed her hands. She didn't say a word, didn't even glance in my direction. Her pride was unshakable. Even now. It didn't matter. Her silence spoke volumes, and her arrogance would crumble soon enough. As the police cars pulled away, taking them to face the consequences of their actions, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, anger, sadness, and something else I couldn't quite name. But mostly, for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. They had tried to erase me, to destroy everything I was, but they hadn't won. I was still standing. And finally I felt like I could breathe again. This journey, it changed me forever. I got my life back, but not without scars. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if Lily hadn't helped me, or if Jonathan hadn't believed me. What would you have done if you found yourself in my shoes, betrayed by the person you trusted most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd really love to hear what you think.